everybody. Welcome to Will and Drew's Gaming Retrospective. You're listening to episode 71 for the week of April 5th, 2020. I'm your host, Drew, and I am joined by Will. What's up, man?
Existing. I'm surviving and existing, and I'm hanging by a thread.
You know, you're combining all these depressing words.
It's been a while since I strung all those together.
Mm-hmm. It has.
But now I'm doing more than surviving, man. I'm well considering the state of the world. What about you?
Yeah, you know, I'm doing all right. It's very interesting because as many of our listeners may be aware, right now we are at the very start of allergy season.
Oh gosh, yeah.
So I wake up in the morning and I'm congested. My nose is like all clogged up. I have like a drippy throat. And all I can think of is, do I have the fucking coronavirus? I have dealt with feeling this way for 36 years. This is not a new feeling for me. Mm-hmm. But I'm like today it's like rainy and cold outside, and I worked late last night, so I'm a little extra tired. And when it's rainy and cold outside, you know, typically I'm a little chilly. You know, we'll turn the heat up, but like, I don't know, just the dampness in the air kind of like affects my being, and I'll like, my bones will ache a little bit, you know. And like,
the storms are brewing.
I'm like, oh shit, do I have the virus? But other than that, like, I feel fine. I feel physically okay. So like, I'm making myself mental. It's so frustrating, man.
I feel you on that. I mean, like, I definitely had like one dry cough today, and I was like, oh my God, coronavirus. Yeah. Not literally, but like there was a fleeting second where I was like, shit, I know they mentioned like dry cough. And then I was like, I haven't had like a glass of water in like 3 hours. So it's probably just that.
Oh man, it's something, that's for sure, isn't it?
It really is, man. I'm just glad that it seems like most of us are safe and following orders, and that's all we can really do, man. Hunker down, game, and be safe.
Yeah, you know, for me, that's a little bit more challenging. You know, I'm thankful to be working still. You know, I do have an essential job, and I'm working, 5 days a week. But at the same time, it's 100% terrifying.
Yeah.
You know, I have to place my trust in my colleagues to do the right thing and not go anywhere they shouldn't. And I have to place my trust in their families to do the same. And I have no way of ensuring that. I can only insure myself. So, I have like rashes on my hands from washing my hands 15 times in an hour and using industrial strength cleaning wipes that like, you ever see in Indiana Jones when the guy's face melts off?
Years ago, I don't remember.
Yeah, it's a pretty famous scene where the guy, like, I don't remember which Indiana Jones it is, but like all of a sudden, like, his face is on fire and everything melts off, his skin melts off, and you see the bones in the eyeballs and everything.
Oh gosh!
Every time I use these wipes, I feel like that's going to happen to my hands. But you know what, man? Like, I'm thankful to be here. I'm thankful to be talking to you about video games today.
Yeah, we're doing something that is obviously perfect for social distancing. We are doing something over the internet. We're communicating. And it's great. We're lucky actually to be doing this show at this time.
Will, we have been social distancing for 71 episodes.
It's true. Except now we actually can't hang out physically.
I know. Which reminds me, don't let me forget too. I gotta talk to you about some plans for the show off air. I'm dropping that now because I will forget. So. Okay.
Hopefully anyway, I'll remember.
Yeah, I hope so. Anyway, thanks everybody for listening. You're listening to WDGR Podcast. You can find us on the web at WDGRpodcast.com. Hit us up on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at WDGR Podcast. And of course, you can always shoot us an email or drop on by our Discord room as well. Links for both are in the show notes. Will, if somebody would like to say hello to you, how can they do so?
Sure. Check me out on Twitter at Will_Gear.
And you can find me at CyanStorm. Why don't we saunter on over to that mailbag? What do you think, man?
Saunter. Let's saunter.
All right. Sauntering over, we'll start with Puxor, who says, with social isolation in full blast, I've noticed that a lot of my non-gaming friends are suddenly interested in gaming. What is your welcoming the newcomer setup? Miraculously, people I know have been finding Switches, so I've been helping people set up Mario Kart for fun, Animal Crossing for social visits, and that social visits. Did I say vidiots? I don't know. Animal Crossing for social visits, and that wacky Nintendo online cell phone app for voice chat.
I like this question, Pucks. This is interesting because I think, anybody can start, really anywhere, obviously, in gaming, if you've never gamed before. But I think, easing into it seems like the right move. So kind of going into the Switch discussion, I think it's probably a good place to start, that enables them to play anywhere, because as a, quote unquote, real gamer, we're used to kind of having a routine of being on the counter in a chair with like a controller in a hand, and there's kind of a ritual about it. Nintendo definitely has a little bit more of a casual approach with more entry-level games, and I think it's a little bit more accessible than, firing up some, heavy open world game on PS4 may not be the greatest place to start.
I think when you're trying to come up with like a welcome package to a gamer, you need to, or a non-gamer, excuse me, you need to kind of analyze who that person is and what their interests are.
Yes.
So it's really difficult to give like a one-size-fits-all answer, but I feel like generally speaking, the Switch is a perfect platform for just about everybody. It's portable. Whether you go with the OG Switch or the Switch Lite, you have a portable system that you can just curl up on your sofa with. There's a wide variety of games at very affordable prices. I mean, there are some insane Switch deals happening right now as we record this on Friday the 3rd. And, there's definitely something for everyone. I feel like if you're going to be putting together a list of games for somebody that's new to the genre, to gaming in general, you want to find a mix of old and new. So, I think like some of the classics are really good. Something like Pac-Man has a really low barrier to entry. Tetris, games of that nature that are kind of like what we would consider classics. Even some of the older Mario Brothers, Mario 1 or Super Mario World, maybe. I think that's a nice game that kind of can introduce somebody to gaming. And then you can kind of venture out from there and get into things that are a little bit more involved. I'm trying to think of some good examples. Mario Kart is a great one. That's very pick up and play. Anybody can play that.
Yep.
What else?
Also, just to kind of segue in, I think that some people might be thinking, well, maybe I'm being discredited or being treated as I'm immature by suggesting something like Mario Kart. Because, a non-gamer might look at that and be like, dude, come on, like this is for like 8-year-olds. Because they may not know, but that's really not the case. I think that these games are just fun and accessible, just as you said, and I think it's still a great place to start at. I think it would just be so wrong to be like, all right, here's Skyrim. There's a lot going on, so let's start with one thing at a time. Like that's like a seminar, you'd have to like really break down every single, process of that game, and it's too heavy. But you're right. I think it depends on the person themselves. If you came across somebody who was super artsy and was like literally an artist, then I'd be suggesting things like Grease and Journey. Because, suggesting even just for them to pick up a Xbox One or a PS4, it's a pretty large investment. It's a commitment.
And I think, a game like Grease or Journey, they have very simple control schemes. It's very basic. It's not necessarily something that is going to cause a new gamer to give up, because there's a challenge, but it's not excessively challenging. It's not like it's not like a game like Celeste where like, precision and platforming is like crucial and essential. You can just kind of sit back, relax with it. I think if you want to get somebody into RPGs, I think, something like the original Final Fantasy VII is a good entry point, even though the graphics are a little dated, because that's a game where, it guides you along at a very comfortable pace. It lets you kind of learn the mechanics as you go. And I think the way that game introduces new characters and skills and presents a story really is a masterclass in how to make an RPG. It may not be the best at doing it, but I think it does it, really, really well compared to like a lot of other games.
I agree. Final Fantasy 12 is certainly not a great place to start.
No. And as much as I enjoyed Final Fantasy 13, I would also say the same thing about that,
Yeah.
So, I mean, I've never been an Animal Crossing fan. I recognize that it is an important game for a lot of people. I'm curious to try the new one because I feel like I'm not part of the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But, I've tried to play a few of them and I just don't get it.
Dude,
so I'm like really hesitant to spend the money on it,
Yeah. And what's interesting about this question is it's making me think if you and I had the chance to sit down with like a line of non-gamers and we sat there with like a clipboard in hand and we kind of asked them like, all right, so what kind of movies do you like? Do you like story? Do you like, what is it that you like about film and art? And do you find this to be fun? And going through like a series of questions to like fine tune like what would be the right choice for them, I think would be a really cool fucking thing to do.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, just imagine that. Like you and I sitting next to each other, clipboards in hand. We've got a line of people out the door. And we're just sitting there interviewing people like to qualify them for the right system. Like I would be the one to do that because I'm seriously unqualified, but it would certainly be pretty fun.
Yeah, it would be. Let's jump over to next question from Epic Outro. Why does everything suck right now?
Oh boy,
that's a heavy question, bro.
I don't even know where to start.
I don't even know where to start, but all we can do is just kind of take solace in the things that bring us joy and try to find a silver lining. I don't think we should be tuning out the world around us, but I do think that we need to try to find a balance in how much of it we're digesting in one go.
Mm-hmm. My answer to this is fairly simple. Get creative at home. I know we've heard this before, but I believe that it's a real thing for this particular time period. And think about all the things that you struggle to get to normally around the house and do those things.
Yeah. Yep. I think that's very important. Stay busy, stay productive.
That's it.
Joe Donut says, if games generally stop coming out for a while, do you see yourself embracing the change, falling off games for a bit, or what? I know this is a different version of the same backlog questions we ask week to week, but I think there might be a difference when the hobby is devoid of the standard hype cycle for a bit. Well, I mean, for me, we kind of had a taste of that in January and February when there was a drought of games. And yes, there were things that were coming out in March and April that we were looking forward to, but that was an opportunity for a lot of people to kind of dive into their backlog and clear out some of the stuff that's been sitting there for a while. Mm-hmm. And, I did an absolutely fucking terrible job of doing that. So, I wouldn't necessarily mind it. I mean, I have enough games to last me years. If I never bought another game, I would be just fine. But literally, about 5 minutes before we started recording, I bought a copy of Night Trap for $3.99, and I bought a copy, it was $2.99, and I also bought a copy of Double Switch for $2.99. So I just added to the problem. There's not going to be any shortage of games to play, and there's so many games out there that I've wanted to play that I haven't played yet, or haven't purchased yet, or just haven't discovered yet. So I think with, everything that's going on, maybe we might not get those AAA titles for a while, but we're still going to have that slow trickle of indie devs that are working in small teams over the internet, maybe one or two people, or maybe just, somebody that's kind of adding a new twist, like the modding community, adding a new twist to an old favorite,
Yeah, I really like this question a lot. I think that we could very easily answer it simply by saying, attack the backlog. But I think it's more than that. I think you raise a good point that, when the game hype comes to a halt the way that it has right now with things being delayed and, E3 and all that kind of stuff, there's definitely a lull in the usual hype that we're used to. And a lot of that hype is what keeps us moving forward, keeps us motivated to attack the backlog and to get excited for new games. So I think there is a chance that some of us, maybe Drew and I or other people, will take a break from gaming because the hype isn't there and things are being delayed, that it doesn't necessarily leave a bad taste in your mouth, but maybe they say, you know what, let me just take a break. Let me go pick up the keyboard, guitar, whatever else it is that I do outside of gaming, and just take a small break. And if that's the case, fine. I don't see a problem with that. Maybe this is our time to not only attack the backlog, but take a small break from gaming as well. And I think that's never an unhealthy thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see myself taking a break from gaming any more than I already have, any more than I already do. We were talking about it a little bit before we started recording, and, there's a lot of people that have a lot of time to game right now, and for better or for worse, and I recognize that, it really is both ways, but my life really hasn't changed much. I'm less social outside of work with, going to friends and scheduling things. A lot of times on my days off, I would have stuff to do. Now I don't have stuff to do with other people, but I still have a ton of shit to do around the house. I have, projects that I'm doing. My gaming time has not increased a single minute. And that's really disappointing to me.
Yeah, and you would think that it would, You
would. But, I mean, really, aside from being constantly paranoid, nothing has changed.
Sorry, it's just the way you phrased that was just, it was very funny. Aside from just, going completely out of my mind, everything has just not really changed.
Yeah. It's true. It's true. All week I've been mixing the audio for a short film that I helped out with earlier this year before the shit hit the fan.
Yeah. Other things come up, when time is given to us, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. It just means that we're creative and we're constantly interested in doing different things. So
agreed.
Gaming will come when it's time. And, I was telling my buddy at work, because he's constantly chastising me about my God of War progress. And he's like, every morning I usually get like, how was last night? How was your Nordic journey? And I'm like, well, my Nordic journey has ceased to commence. Last time I played was Monday. But, a lot of times I'm just tired after work and I hang out with Lauren. And I now look forward to playing more on like a Friday night and a weekend thing. And it might sound generic, but it's nice to kind of have that sort of reward at the end of the week where I can really kind of relax and not have to worry about like waking up the next morning. So tonight, after we watch a movie, I'm hoping to have some energy left, fire it up, and have a nice late night with it.
Yeah. Well, I hope you take full advantage of your weekend and play lots of games. I don't know what the weather's going to be like. Right now, it's pretty gross out, so there's no reason to even go outside.
I know, dude. I know. I just want to see the sun more often, for God's sake.
It would be a wonderful thing if that were true. If that happened. Get more sunshine. You need that vitamin D in your life.
Absolutely.
So, folks, if you ever have anything you want to ask us, shoot on over to our Discord room. Drop a letter in the mailbag. We'd love to hear from you. We answer questions from our audience every single podcast. So thank you very much, everybody. So, Will, you mentioned briefly that you haven't put as much time into God of War as you'd like to this week. Can you tell me how it's going so far?
Oh, it's wonderful. It's a real wonderful experience, man. I mean, I know I keep kind of saying that, but it's just so special. The area that I'm in right now is just gorgeous. I'm having to kind of escape this area that it's hard not to kind of reveal too much, but there's a lot of different like things I'm moving around to create different walkways, and I'm hanging out with Atreus still because, obviously he doesn't leave my side. And we're just on this journey together, man. And it's so awesome to have like a buddy with you. And obviously my buddy is my son. And we're figuring out puzzles together. We're fighting off dark elves. I'm activating Spartan Rage, which is just absolute blast to do. The story is still just amazingly engaging. I'm learning new moves. Like I bought some new moves because I have like, XP and power-ups available, upgrades. It's just constantly evolving. It never gets stale.
Right.
The world is constantly evolving into something more beautiful everywhere I go.
Yeah.
It's I make it sound like the best game ever, and and it isn't, but it certainly is way up there. I mean, the fact that it's now in my, I would say, top 15 of all time is saying a lot.
Really? Wow.
Because that's a tough little margin to break into for me. So, I don't know, man. I wish I could say more, but there isn't a whole lot to say because what I played on Monday night was just more of like figuring out puzzles and stuff. So it wasn't like anything substantial that I could really talk about.
Okay.
I'm just still having an absolute blast with it. I'm excited to get to the next area because according to my colleague, he's like, oh man, like, you know, you got to tell me like when you've gotten a little bit further because I know exactly where you are and like this is going to happen. But he's not telling me anything. He's not spoiling anything. He's just like, oh, like the next part's like amazing, like that kind of commentary. So he's keeping me motivated to play. And even without him, I would still have the motivation there to continue my Nordic journey, my Nordic journey.
That's really good to hear, man. I'm really excited for you. I'm glad you're having fun with this game. You know, every time we talk about it, you just seem more and more optimistic of where it's going, you know?
Very much so. And, you know, it just, like I said, I think last week, it feels so good to feel this good about a game.
Sure.
You know, for me, I'm very difficult. I'm a very stubborn, picky gamer. And for me to fall in love with a AAA title like this that's been played by millions of people is saying a lot because normally I stray away from stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, but I you know, color me impressed, man. This game is outstanding. So far, I would give it a 10 out of 10, and I'm not even close to done or close to beating it yet. So,
yeah. That's awesome, man. I'm really glad that you know, things are going well with the game for you.
Yeah, you know, ultimately, I think my final word for now, until I have more to report, and I've said this before, including in my new Will's Cool Game review, it's one of the most polished games I think I've ever played in my life. And I've played some really polished games, but this one, the amount of care that's gone into it is just extraordinary. And I really hope that for the people that are listening that have not played it, I hope that this and my article is enough to kind of get you on board because I just want to sell people on this game the way that this dude at work sold me on it. Yeah,
definitely, man.
I can't wait until you get to it someday. And, you know, if that day doesn't come for a couple of years, who cares? But it's going to be worth it.
Yeah, I'm going to get to it sooner or later, I promise you.
Yeah, I know you will.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Unfortunately, as far as Doom goes, I really haven't had an opportunity to fire it up since we last talked, so I don't have a lot to say. I know Joe in our Discord room had some frustrations with the game, so I haven't reached those points yet. I'm wondering if any of the frustrations had to do with the difficulty level. The game is quite difficult, and I know that he was playing it at a higher difficulty than I was. I feel pretty confident that, you know, playing it at Hurt Me Plenty, which is kind of like the normal difficulty level, is the way to go, even though the devs have kind of gone on record saying, like, we want you to play it at Ultra Violence.
Okay.
So, I don't know, man. I'm still just kind of, you know, figuring it out and finding my way with, you know, where the game is taking me. But it is definitely excessively difficult. And there are just so many buttons and button combinations. They don't really waste much time throwing too much at you. You know, it's not like they drip feed it to you. It's just like very quickly you have an absurd amount of things, you know, coming at you, and you better learn quick. That's all I can say. You know, you got to learn very, very quickly. Failure is a big part of the game. But I'm looking forward to spending some time with it, hopefully tonight or tomorrow, and kind of getting back into the swing of things with it, you know?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing more from you specifically because, I mean, obviously you're a massive Doom fan, and so are other people. But it's interesting because the general consensus on this game is exactly what you said. Like, people are really enjoying it, but they are critiquing things, and they're critiquing like very similar things, which is, you know, the platforming elements that are a little bit more present, difficulty. I've noticed a lot of people online, like on Twitter, talking about how they had to lower the difficulty many times. So the consensus is very similar. Like, people are suffering from the same, you know, quote unquote problems or challenges. And, I guess that's good and bad. For some people, it's leaving a bad taste in their mouths. For others, they're working past it, and then they're coming out at the end saying that this is one of the best FPSs they've ever played. Right. So I'm still intrigued by the game. I still think it looks just massively epic and violent in a good way. Yeah. And I like the adrenaline sort of approach. This is a high-octane shooter with, no rules here. I mean, this is just, you're in, like you said, you're not being fed slowly. This is just like, I think Joe made a reference about like, he had like a mouthful of food and it's like somebody's just shoving more in his mouth, like when he's barely even swallowed. So, you could take that being good and bad, but, I think I won't be able to say much more until I actually play it.
Yeah, fair enough. I think that's going to be the case too. When you're done with God of War, maybe give some thought, fire it up.
Yeah, it could be.
So, unfortunately, The Last of Us 2 has been delayed. Did you hear about that?
I did, and apparently, this is the fourth time, if I'm reading it correctly. It was supposed to come out last year, I think towards the end of last year, then in February, I believe. And then it was supposed to be like a different month, and then now it's been pushed out again. I think it was May. May was the last time, and then now it's been pushed out again.
And they have not announced a date, as far as I'm aware, too. Is that correct?
That is correct, as far as I know. They have not announced a new date, which is the most concerning thing for the people that are looking forward to it. It's a mixture of people understanding, for obvious reasons, and then it's also like the other half is like kind of people being pretty disappointed because they know that this has been delayed multiple times and they understand why, but like the fact that this is 4 times due to the virus, it's understandable, but at the same time, they're starting to wonder, okay, like what was happening before that? Because if it was 3 times before the virus, then like, and the studio is known for crunch time, then what is actually the problem now? Right.
I don't know, man. There was an article, I think it was Jason Schreier of Kotaku put out, and it went in depth into some of the issues that this studio has had. And I'm trying to find the link. I haven't had a chance to review it yet, but it was shared with us yesterday.
Very good read.
And looks like it was written earlier this year, March 12th. Kotaku, as Naughty Dog crunches on The Last of Us 2, developers wonder how much longer this approach can last. Now, you've had an opportunity to read this. Can you tell me about it?
Sure. I read it last night in bed, trying not to fall asleep. And it was nothing to do with the article. It's just I was fucking exhausted. But, a really, really good read, actually. It's been a while since I read an article that long and was that engaged. And it really gave you a pretty up-close look or imagination of what's going on at that studio. And it's interesting because I've always liked Naughty Dog. I mean, these are the guys behind Uncharted, a series that I think most people have certainly heard of. And, I've had the luxury of playing those games and they're amazing. Every inch of it, every inch of each game is amazing. There's so much detail, and clearly that studio is either working really hard or they're full of geniuses, and it turns out it's a mixture of both. You have the best of the best that are there, and they are working around the clock, often 12 hours, 15 hours a day, obscene amounts of hours, working on weekends, staying until midnight, all the things that you would imagine a crew like that doing. And the article basically breaks it down to not only how long they're working and how hard they are and some of the trials and tribulations that they suffer from doing that, but the luxury of what it would be like to work there and how they can sort of justify the hours by saying, well, I mean, you do work for Naughty Dog and like some people would kill to work here. So we kind of have to look at it that way sometimes. And it touches on all these different angles of what's right and what's wrong and what's, made to feel you or what's an obligation and what isn't. And it really just kind of tackles a lot of issues that some of these developer or these studios face, where they're crunching on time limits for certain scenes in the game to be done. It also talks about how a certain group of developers might be working on one particular scene for like weeks and then it gets scrapped entirely, which obviously would be incredibly painful. That would be like you editing one of your films and then somebody's like, you know what, Drew, we're just going to toss this, dude.
Yeah.
You'd be like, are you fucking kidding me? I spent 3 weeks editing this.
Yeah.
Thinking it was going to be in the game. So it really approaches a lot of those different things in such an interesting read. And it makes you think about what's really going on at a lot of game studios, not just Naughty Dog, but Santa Monica Studios, Bungie, you name it. And I think that in the back of our minds, we probably shouldn't be too surprised about what we're reading because some of these games that we're playing are, fantastic. So there's no way that they just whipped it together. We know that they're working hard. But I think it left me with the sort of notion of, I think that we can still have these games at the quality that we're seeing without people busting their fucking asses the way that they are.
Right.
And busting your ass is one thing, but busting your ass, 60, 70, 80 hours a week, I don't think is necessary to create a quality game. And if that's happening, then the time limits are too short or you're just expecting too much. I think people should be working 40 hours or less a week per person. If they want to work more, fine. But there should not be an obligation theme going on where if people stay late and you leave on time, that you're not like a team player, because that's another problem when you have people staying late.
Right.
So it's a tricky thing. I think it's something that's going to be talked about for a while, but I highly recommend you read it. And I think it'll definitely give you a new perspective on playing some of these games. And in fact, I'm kind of wish I didn't read it in some ways, because when I eventually get around to playing Uncharted 4, I feel like I'm going to remember that article. Yeah. And it's going to make me think of how hard they worked for me to sit on my fucking ass and play this game. And, as a gamer, I have the right to buy a game with my money and play that game on the luxury of my couch. But I think that this article will make you think a little bit differently about how you play your games and the work that goes into them.
Do you think that reading something like this creates an obligation for the player to purchase these games at full price, or an obligation to support a developer that they might not necessarily support?
I would say so. Based on my feelings that I've been left with after reading that, I feel more obligated to, yes, buy a game that is shrink-wrapped new at full price if I support the studio. And just kind of in general. And I know that's kind of a quick statement that I haven't put a lot of thought into, but that article, man, I mean, I've read articles similar to that before, but it just makes me think a little bit more carefully about being a gamer who's going to buy a game and be like, yo, this game's trash. Like, these developers are just idiots. Like, I've never been that gamer, really, ever, because I understand how hard these guys work, but it makes you think differently about the people that do speak that way.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting.
It's very interesting, man. I think it's something that we often don't always think about. We're so quick to buy a game and either shit on it or love it, and we don't often think about maybe some of the challenges that went into making a game that perhaps you didn't like so much.
If there was a more widespread change to the industry where they took a more standard work week approach, would that change your perspective?
I don't know. I think it's a really good question. It might. But at the same time, I'm just not sure. I think I would have to meditate on that some more. But I think that I would feel a lot more comfortable about playing a game like Uncharted 4, knowing that those guys had a nice, not like, easygoing time, like making it. Like, I believe in hard work and passion. Mm-hmm. But, I believe in work-life balance more than you would ever imagine. And I can't stand the idea of somebody working to the bone because of time limits to make a game while they're sweating and losing sleep and they're caffeinated and they're not seeing their newborn child or their wife that's begging for them to come home just so I can play a game and maybe talk shit about a particular sequence I didn't like. I don't know. It just makes me feel like a dirtbag. Yeah.
I hear what you're saying, man. I'm a big proponent of having a solid work-life balance too. So when I hear of people, putting in 80-hour weeks to try to bring some enjoyment to me so that I can have my work-life balance. It is a little frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little disheartening even. But I mean, unless, I don't know. I think under most circumstances, like, I'm a pretty anti-union person, but I think with games, maybe it is time for everybody to kind of form a union, some kind of a developers union or something, because this is happening way too often with way too many studios.
Mm-hmm. I mean, what about Doom Eternal? Like, I mean, what's going on over there? Like,
I have no idea.
Maybe it's something similar. I know I've heard things about. Yeah. I've heard things about Rockstar. I've heard horror stories about that company, and
right.
I don't know if any of it's true. I'm just reading things on the internet. So,
I mean, BioWare recently, when they had that expose on Anthem come out and Mass Effect Andromeda, that was a big deal.
Yeah.
But I mean, Jason Schreier is, he's a pretty respected journalist in the games industry. And it just seems like 1 month after another, it's another one of these types of articles.
Yeah. No, it seems to be a lot more prevalent, man. I was really trying not to use that word because I don't want Tom to make fun of me. I think it was Tom or somebody that called me out on that shit. Somebody was like, if I had a fucking dollar for every time that Will said prevalent, I was like, shit. It's like, what episode was that? But yeah, no, it's scary because I think we've grown up as gamers not really thinking about those things very much. And now that we're adults and gaming has changed so much and games are like movies now, where the production level is so high that it's hard to ignore these things. And these things are going to start coming out because, not to say that working on Duck Hunt was a 5-year project, because I'm sure it was not a 5-year project and it might have been difficult at the time. But let's just face it, making The Last of Us 2 versus Duck Hunt is a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, I mean, the complexities of games have changed so drastically, just in the past, 5 years alone, let alone 10. I mean, if you think back, just size of the teams that work on these games is incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think there's two different camps here. You have the people that are kind of immature. They're like, oh man, this is bullshit. Last of Us delayed 4 times. This is ridiculous. What's going on over there? Right. You have that. And then you also have the people who are like, well, it sucks, but clearly they must be facing issues, or there's time crunch issues. They're going to start rationalizing and thinking a little bit more maturely over what's going on. If the COVID thing didn't happen and this was delayed a 4th time, I suppose I could understand some people saying, all right, well, what is going on now? Because 4 times,
right?
They obviously are working really hard, but maybe they're being pressured to release it and they're just still not ready, and it happened to happen 4 times. I don't know. Maybe it would create more discussion. Being delayed once or twice usually is obviously a sign of just not simply just not being ready. But yeah, this particular case, let's just say it's 3 times, 4th time being COVID.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. What do you want to talk about next, man? You got a few things on the list here.
State of Gaming with Virus we put down there. This one, I don't know if we really had anything particular to work off of. I think it was just more of what's going on right now in the world of gaming with the virus. And I think we kind of covered that. I think things are just being delayed. Things are not, the hype train is definitely slowed down, and people are just, hopefully just hunkering down with, a handful of games, whether it's in the backlog or not, and just enjoying perhaps some time online with people as well in games.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, it's just so crazy, how the industry is being affected by this as a whole. There's so many games that are being delayed or pushed back, or, I'm glad that developers are recognizing that it's not safe for people to be working, together. But at the same time too, it's a little different now because the internet is such an effective way of getting work done, and I feel like in a game developer studio, having access to, internet to work from home, would be a a perfect way to get stuff done,
Sure.
So it's like I'm kind of two minds when it comes to these kind of delays, because the gaming industry, if any industry is able to weather the storm, I feel like the gaming industry would probably be the one that would cope with it the best.
Yeah, I think so. And, if kind of going back to the complaining thing too, like if anybody is complaining right now that these games are getting delayed and they have nothing to play, is like, that's just preposterous. Mm-hmm. Like if you ever say that you have nothing to play, then you're just not buying enough games, or you're just relying on like beating a brand new AAA game and then like waiting for the next one.
Exactly.
You've got to mix it up. And if AAA titles are your thing and you've played them all, then God bless you. And if that's your thing, then yes, I guess you are going to have to wait. But I don't think many people are in that position.
Yeah, I agree. Death Stranding has been kind of like the meme game of the quarantine, with a lot of people joking around. I guess I don't know much about the Death Stranding myself. It's not something that I really dove into too much, but that whole like social distancing, receiving everything from packages kind of thing. Is that the general idea?
Sort of. I mean, it's funny. I mean, I own the game, but I still don't know that much about it because I only played for a very, very short amount of time. But I do understand for the most part why it is kind of trending on social right now, because you are playing as Sam Porter Bridges or whatever, and you are running around collecting packages and delivering and stuff. And the game's premise is to bring people together. It's about the connection of people. That's the general idea of the game. So I think that it is something that seems pretty... oh my God, I'm going to say it again.
Prevalent?
Yeah. No, it seems relevant. Let's say that.
Ooh, nice. You're changing it up.
Yeah, no, it seems relevant for this time for obvious reasons. I mean, if that's what the game is about, which it seems like it certainly is, then no wonder it's trending. And it's new. It came out at a very unique time, kind of right before the virus broke out.
Yeah.
And people are mostly enjoying it. So if that's making them feel better about the situation, then cool, I guess.
Yeah.
I guess that sort of leads us into another topic. Online gaming, I feel like no one's talking about this. Like, should people be playing games online together? Isn't this kind of the perfect time? Mm-hmm. I don't see it trending.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think online gaming is popular with people that enjoy online gaming, and I think people that like solo gaming are solo gamers. I don't really think much has changed in that respect. It's not like we were a strictly couch co-op society to begin with anymore.
Yeah, no, I think you raise a good point. The people that were online gaming are just simply going to keep doing it, but maybe this has inspired the people that don't normally play online to play online a little bit more often. Yeah. I mean, for me personally, it doesn't change anything. I'm still going to play the games that I like to play. Yeah.
I think it would be easier for me to kind of find a game online if I wanted to play online. But, I don't play a lot online to begin with. We'll do the game nights, every few weeks. Mm-hmm. But that's about the extent of my multiplayer these days.
Yeah, I think situational, circumstances definitely matter. Like if you're a single man or a single woman, and you don't really have a lot going on in terms of like, obviously being able to hang out with friends in person, and you own a game system and your friends do as well, and you're not gaming online, then you probably should. Because now's your chance to like really take advantage of you being stuck at the house. You have friends that are able to play with you online. I would do it now. Take advantage now, because that time may not come again for some time. Maybe when everybody goes back to work and things become a little bit more normalized, you won't have that opportunity to do so.
Yeah, it's true. I definitely feel like I'm not taking advantage of the situation as much as I would like to. But it's been difficult to, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, like you said at the beginning, man, I mean, your life is not really that much different right now.
Correct.
I think this is going to really be something that, like, maybe somebody like Vency or like people that have unique work from home jobs where they don't necessarily have to work like all day.
Right.
And they're being tracked, then those are the people that will really be able to take advantage of this kind of time.
Yeah, no, I agree with that 100%. I wish I could. I really do wish I could, but it is what it is. We'll kind of roll with it and see where things take us. And, health and wellness is most important right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Unfortunately.
I think that's what's on people's minds or when are we going back out to the store to get more groceries? And, gaming is, and this kind of goes back to Joe's point, is gaming being kind of somewhat overlooked right now because we're all saying to ourselves, well, wait a second, shouldn't I be gaming like a lot right now? And we're not. And it's because there's a pandemic going on. So it's very, very easy to say, oh, like, let's just game. But, with everything going on, it's kind of hard to focus right now on something that's going to bring you a lot of joy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I find myself, stressing more than anything these days. So. Yeah, it's tough. It is, man. It is. Well, man, I don't really have anything else to talk about this week. It's just kind of a weird, holding pattern, I think, with all of us at this point. And, hopefully next week I'll have more gaming stuff to talk about personally. I'm sure we will. Like I said, a weird time. I'm sure we'll be able to hopefully hunker down a little bit more over the weekend and next week and have a little bit more to chat about. Yeah, hopefully. Absolutely. So we'll just wrap it up here. I just want to thank everybody for joining us. Be sure to check us out at WDGRpodcast.com. Of course, we're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at WDGRpodcast. Will, how can they find you? On Twitter at Will_Gear. And you can find me at ScienceStorm. Anything else you want to say before we wrap it up for the evening? WDGRpodcast.com. And I just said that. I'm going to say it again. God damn it, Will. I love that site. I don't know who runs it, but it's a great site. It is a great site. Yeah, so check out our website, Discord, everything Drew said, and play some games as much as possible. Yeah, sounds good to me, man. So thanks, everybody, for listening. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time. See ya.